Hitting revenue targets is hard and requires constant hustle. Last quarter's success is already forgotten. Learn the mindset and tactics of today's most successful revenue producers in B2B marketing and sales. We call this the Revenue Hustle. I'm your host, Tom Hessen, navigating you on this journey. Today's show is sponsored by 9 Lenses, an interactive assessment platform that enables you to add instant value to your buyers and allows your sales team to tailor business conversations focused on the pain points each and every time. Check them out at 9lenses.com. All right, well, it is my distinct pleasure to bring you guys Cody Ward. We're going to talk a lot about Cody's background in marketing and as a demand gen leader. But my name's Tom Hessen. I'm the host of the Revenue Hustle and excited to talk to Cody today. So Cody, welcome to the Revenue Hustle.
Thanks for having me, Tom.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited to talk to you, Cody. We've had an opportunity to just kind of get to know each other over the past 6 months or so. And I know you've got a lot of strong and smart opinions around marketing and revenue growth. And so you're currently the senior director of demand gen at Conexiom. And
That's right.
I'll let you introduce give us your full quick background of your experience.
Sure. Yeah. So I cut my teeth in digital marketing and have been focused lately for B2B SaaS companies in everything demand generation, marketing operations, revenue marketing, really trying to partner with my counterparts in sales and finance and just deliver growth for the organizations that I'm working with. So I found this sweet spot of B2B and technology, and it's been a fun ride.
Yeah, and I think you tend to go towards the earlier stage companies as well. Is that like growth companies, startups, or later stage? Is that?
Yeah, I grew up in an entrepreneurial family, so I've got the builder mentality in me. So I'm looking at the people, the strategy, technology, and processes, and I'm just like, what maturity level are you? I want to get you to the next one. How can I help?
Yeah, no, there's a lot that goes into those early stage companies, so you really do have to be a jack of all trades there. So, all right, well, you guys know we do revenue rules on the Revenue Hustle. So, Cody, take it away. What's your first revenue rule?
My first revenue rule is report in the same format as the CFO.
Okay, so obviously marketing, CFO, they've got a nice relationship there, sometimes combative at times. So unpack that for us.
Well, the problem or the mistake that I've seen marketers trip over is when they report on their own dashboards, their own KPIs, their own metrics, and often it's a different set that goes in front of the board and the executive team at the end of the day, and so you're having two completely different conversations. And so if you align directly to what the business is focusing on and think of yourself first, not as a marketer, but as a business strategist, someone who is equally positioned to make an investment and see a return. If you look at it that way, your decisions and outcomes will ultimately be more positive.
Mm-hmm. And so I'm guessing this kind of came out of some less than stellar experiences, working with finance. So like, how did you learn this? Maybe a few hard lessons along the way.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I failed a number of different times, so I've learned this the hard way. But in marketing, especially in digital marketing, like I mentioned, it was where I started with SEO, paid search, email marketing. All of those have a lot of metrics tied to them, and they give you a sense of whether or not you're doing it effectively or not. But ultimately, you got to be careful about sharing those with the executive team and with your sales counterparts and customer success counterparts, because they don't have the same background or interest you do in those KPIs. You can view them as leading indicators for ultimately revenue, but don't present them as if they're a success story when marketing is hitting all of their KPIs and then sales is missing quota, because you'll never get your integration and alignment there.
Yeah, so like I've seen that before, where maybe around like likes or views or email downloads or ebook downloads or things of that nature. Is that what some of the KPIs, the internal marketing KPIs you're talking about?
Those are great examples. Yeah. And if you throw those up on a slide in a dashboard that says, we've got to 10,000 likes, like just be aware that the other side, your CFO might be like, how much do we spend to get those likes? And ultimately, how many of those likes are translating to opportunities and deals?
Yeah, it's funny. I had lunch with a good accounting friend of mine, and he's in B2B, and we were talking about marketing, and he basically said the exact same thing that he questions marketing because it's really hard to draw a line from the spend to the ROI. So you're saying exactly what he was saying, but from the marketer side.
It is really hard, but it's even harder when you're not looking at what they're focused on. And so my favorite person in the organization is the CFO to go partner with. And if you can get them to understand it, you'll have a much easier job getting the right investments and being able to move and grow the company.
We'll talk about that. So what does that conversation look like? How do you, I mean, obviously finance and marketing are two wildly different domains.
Mhm.
So how do you speak finance or how do you speak marketing to finance and get them to understand how you
I
view the
start
world?
on the completely opposite end than I think I'm conditioned to naturally. And so I start with what's the revenue at the company? What is the ARR? How many, where is that bookings coming from? I think marketing, whether or not they're the CMO is the pipeline owner, I think they kind of should wrap their arms around it and grab it and own it anyways. So even if you don't have complete control of, say, your customer growth funnel, is you should put your arm around it and say, I'm at least going to measure it and draw some insights from it. Even if you don't have complete ownership of the self-sourced rep revenue, for example,
Right,
you
right,
should be
right.
able to measure it and see all of that because that gives you intelligence to compare to your own funnels. And I think marketers should be encouraged and maybe even provided ownership of the entire funnel and starting at the bottom of it to say where did it come from and what ultimately are the decisions the CFO is making. You got to start there. My kind of intuition, and when I earlier in my career, I started on the complete opposite end with the CFO, and I said, "Look how many impressions and clicks we got," and it never worked out for me.
Yeah, they don't see that. And so when you talk to the CFO and you're talking about revenue and kind of work backwards to marketing, so what are like how do you tell the marketing story to a CFO when you're talking about budget and I know there's a lot of skepticism isn't the right word, but just they just don't know what marketing's doing, right? They don't fundamentally understand it. They don't know where the dollars go or how it comes back. So how do you translate that when you talk to the
I try
CFO?
and I try and do it in a systematic and logical way. So it's all about this causes this, that causes this, and I'm trying to work them back to a contact, right? Like we can't get someone to book a meeting with us if we don't know them, if we're not in some sort of communication with them, and we can't get them to have an opportunity unless there's a meeting or some sort of conversation. We can't get them to ultimately go through our sales progression unless unless they're put into that funnel and pipeline. And so I work at the bottom and say, where did these come from? I then make them help them understand that there's multiple places, and I always start with sourced. And I think where marketers get tripped up is they start with influenced, and they're trying to take credit for things that they maybe worked in the middle of a sales cycle, and they're like, this came in from the sales reps relationship, their best friend happened to be the CEO and they pulled him in. And then marketers get in trouble because they say, hey, we helped that because they opened an email. And so the attribution rules, I think, need to be really clear, and I think you need to start with, this is what came in from marketing. It may be a small percentage, but it's a starting point. And then if you can get alignment on that, it's easier to jump to a conversation about what you influenced.
Right, because you're saying sourced is easier, it's a smaller number, right? Usually, right, than
Usually.
influence, right? And so, but that's like concrete, there's no doubt about it, right? There's no, that should be, take it to the bank sort of revenue that marketing brought in, right?
That's right. And you would position it as, we wouldn't have gotten that revenue without marketing.
Now, in your experience, how does that equate to the overall budget? I suspect maybe the sourced revenue is not achieving the entire marketing budget, right? So there's not, it's not, so someone could say, well, marketing's a loss leader, right? Where I'm investing X and I'm only getting Y back according to sourced. But that's where we all know that obviously you have to be in the marketplace, right? Just to be out there for people to have an impression, to come read, right? I mean, you can't always attribute, that CEO's, the sales rep's best friend's a CEO sort of bought, but they probably came to the website, they probably read some content, but you had no idea what they did, right? So there's all sorts of attribution holes, if you will, in this, telling
Yeah,
marketing story.
that's a fantastic point. And I think where I start is I try and separate demand gen and lead gen from the overall marketing and
I
certainly
gotcha.
from brand and awareness. And I say this is the scalable part where we can invest more dollars and see an immediate return. There may be other brand awareness plays, different problems you're trying to solve, cost of doing business, product marketing, PR, AR, all of those things you could probably group as more of a cost center for marketing, but I want the CFO to be thinking of demand gen as a profit center.
Okay. No, that's really good. And so when you break that budget down between kind of the demand gen versus branding and some of the other marketing things that are really hard to tie back to, what's your budget split, between demand gen or like brand marketing, where you don't expect to see, an easy return from attribution?
Well, that's a good question. I think where I'd start first is what's the contribution to the revenue and ultimately the growth number by the other growth levers of the business. So how much of it's coming from your existing customer base? How much of it coming from sales or your business development team? How much of it is coming from any of those levers? And then I would start there because then you can get them thinking about the percentage allocation of each, and marketing may contribute 100% if you're a product-led growth company. It might contribute something as low as 10% if you're solely enterprise SaaS based, and anywhere in between. But understanding that is where marketing, I think, can make a difference, because the reason why is say it's 25% for demand gen. That's the budget that I would tie directly to those numbers in sourced. And then the other number, that percentage you're asking me about of awareness and PR and AR, is I would say that budget, it's not going to help demand gen, and maybe it will give it a little bit of lift, but the purpose of that budget is to help those other channels and sources, such as customer growth and education there, such as maybe alliances, such as your business development channel, because it's how I would kind of try and separate it.
I see. I see. Okay. Yeah. So that way your sourced revenue comes back to a smaller investment. You're not taking it back to the entire marketing budget. You're taking it back to um, a smaller portion of your budget. So it shows a little bit stronger ROI in that case. And I think you're making a really
Right.
important point about there's different forms of marketing, and the expectation of return is different for each one, right? I suspect most CFOs don't break marketing down into these silos like you just outlined. They just see the number, right? And then they want to know, headcount, tools, campaign costs. They just roll it up into one big number and say, okay, Cody, what'd you get for me, right? But you're
Yeah.
educating them, right? And so how are these conversations going? Like, so as you've had them over time, what's been the reaction by the CFO? What are the questions, pushback, or other, as you've, educated them a bit?
Well, the comment that I hear most often is I don't see it. You know what I mean? Like I can't make the connection from here's our all-in marketing budget and how much we're spending. It's really easy to look at it as a cost center when you just start there. Versus this is a channel that you could put more in and put more out. There's a ROI to it, and I think companies that are in growth mode and CEOs and CFOs, that's really what they want, because they're trying to decide: do I hire more salespeople? Do I hire more BDRs? Do I hire more? Put more dollars into advertising or marketing? Like they're looking at all the trade-offs, and if you can't quantify what you're doing and it's just a big number at the end of the day, you'll be in trouble. So the best compliment that I've gotten in my career is I see it. Like I finally make the connection. Like I may not buy into exactly what you're saying in terms of recommendation to invest here or invest there, but at least I can follow your logic from if you go to this event, that event will generate 1,000 contacts in the database. Those contacts will get followed up on by an inbound BDR, and 100 of them will, become that a next level conversation.
Right.
Of that, 50 of them will be meetings of that, and then you can work through your conversion rates. Of the meetings, we're going to close 25 of them. And of the meetings that we close, like that revenue with the average sale would be worth this. Like that, at least I think if they track that through and you can walk them through that visually, is where I've gotten those compliments before, and it's been the most fun.
Oh, wow. Yeah, no, I know that that's a tough relationship to manage, especially with, marketing and finance. Again, I think that's anytime the numbers are squishy, finance doesn't really do squishy, right? It's very black and white. Just that's the way their brains work, right? And which makes them great at finance, right? And accounting and all those sorts of things. So I can appreciate why they don't fully understand. What's the CEO's relationship kind of? I could see that the CEO could be helpful in that relationship, right? Just because in theory, they're a little bit closer to marketing and sales than maybe the CFO is just from a natural capability and competency standpoint. But, I guess there are some very financial driven CEOs that share you know, share the same views of finance.
Yeah, I think I've seen a good range of them. The majority that I've worked with seem to be easier to get on board with marketing. They usually have an affinity that says, I don't quite understand it, but I feel like if just more people understood it, especially the CEOs that have come from sales, they're like, just help us get the word out. Just get us an opportunity to talk to someone, and if you can create those experiences, I'll invest in marketing. Do I know the exact return on investment? Maybe not, but my gut feeling is that I'm gonna have a better sales conversion with marketing plus sales than sales on their own.
Right, and because I'm more of a pure seller than I am marketer, and so I'm of that opinion. Like you have to be out there in the marketplace, especially today with digital marketing. That's where people are reading and learning and searching and all sorts of stuff. So if you're not in the digital marketing, you're almost nowhere, right? So it's gone are the days where you just hire a bunch of salespeople and be like, go knock on a bunch of doors, right? Because that to me is wildly expensive and efficient, where you can get a lot more scale in marketing when you equate them to X number of bodies in sales, right? So, but you're right, it is harder to quantify, but you can't. There's a cost to not doing it as well. That's how I process it.
Well, that's a fantastic statement that you just made there. Is if you can ultimately put it in terms of an opportunity cost that they don't want to lose, you'll often you could say this is the return you're getting by having this on. It's easier to cut something that you're not losing anything. Like you're not losing any revenue by just flipping the light switch off. But if you can show it in a way that says this is a consistent pipeline, this is consistent revenue that's coming from this. If you turn it off, here's going to be the repercussions. That's when it's a lot easier to defend, and you think twice as a CEO or CFO to say, oh, maybe we should keep going on that and look into it a little bit deeper.
Right, and I know it takes time in marketing, right? It's not like you just flip a switch and all of a sudden, right, like great quality opportunities are coming in. So like how do you help them manage the time factor of building the awareness, creating the campaigns, running them over time? Because people just don't buy enterprise software and, you know, with their credit card, right? It takes time.
Yeah, the time factor is one of my biggest challenges to overcome. My strategy there is to look at the leading indicators and to view them as cohorts. So, where are we? September. So what I would normally point to is if you've got the luxury of data, which not everyone does, especially if you're just starting out, is go to a cohort that's fully baked. and completely reconciled and closed, and say, let's go look at that one and understand where it is. And then, maybe January, if you're in enterprise, is one that you could do. Otherwise, maybe it's back in 2020. But let's go and see how things were progressing then, and that closed cohort. And then you kind of walk forwards and have a little bit less confident in each of the cohorts, especially the ones that are maybe last month or the current month. But you can look at the leading indicators. And if you have that funnel staged, mapped out, and documented, you'll be able to say that the deals or the contacts are most likely to become MQLs if you're using that. Those are most likely to become meetings. Those meetings are most likely to become opportunities. And as long as you're showing the volume of that, as close to the revenue as you can get, close to the deals, I think you could say, I expect this cohort that's maybe 3 months ago, because there are this many meetings that we scheduled, those meetings and based on the previous cohorts are going to become opportunities or not.
Got it. Yeah, no, that's good. Okay, no, that's really good. I think that's the first time we've ever really delved into the financial storytelling of the marketing team, but I think it is critically important, as we know, that just CMOs and marketing leaders oftentimes don't stay in their job very long. And I think that's just because there's mixed or misaligned understanding of what the role is. And not all CMOs do the same work, right? Some do more strategy, some, are more brand building, right? So there's still a lot of variance in what CMOs do. But no, that's a fantastic point. So thank you for that revenue rule. All right, so we're going to transition to the number 2 rule. Cody, what's your second revenue rule?
Revenue rule number 2 is bring everyone along for the ride.
Okay, tell me more about that.
I've been in organizations where marketing is ahead of sales. I've also been in organizations where marketing's been behind sales. I've been in organizations where we've been in front of the go-to market and the product capabilities, and then I've been in ones where we're on the lagging side. And in all cases, I think you want to be at the same pace and communicate what's going on in marketing to the group. Like, you've got to do almost as much internal marketing as you're doing external marketing, because if you're not doing it for your sales, your CS, your product, your engineering teams, no one else at the organization likely is going to.
And so when you say that you're ahead or behind, what do you mean by, like, if you're ahead of sales or you're behind sales? Are you meaning in terms of like your capability or your maturity or your what does that mean?
Uh, Capability, maturity, but also messaging. And so if sales is going out there to market and they're talking about it one way, and you're over here,
I see.
because your relationship with the CEO or the chief product officer talking about it where it's 6 months or 1 year from now, you're gonna have some problems. And so there's a lot of communication that needs to happen of here's what we're going to market with, here are the product launches, here are the campaigns that we're running and are live in the market. And if for no other reason than to say that this is how you can leverage them, because sales is being asked to do more, and they would love to make it easier on themselves by being able to tap into something that someone else has worked on. And too often they could be independently trying to come up with their own messaging and story, because marketing is over here doing something completely different.
I see. Yeah, because I've seen a lot of people build a lot of sales reps build their own decks and and all that kind of stuff. So how do you get that message out? How do you bring people along? I think communication is difficult in all organizations. Just, everyone kind of gets siloed. We get heads down. It's hard to, so I'm curious kind of how you guys do that.
I summarize it in one way, and that's to say, summarize and communicate what you did, are doing, and are about to do, and just stay in that rhythm of, hey, here's what we just did. This is what it means to you. Here's what we're currently doing. Pay attention to this the most, and here's what's upcoming. We know you're swamped, but we wanted to give you a heads up. Because how many times have you heard from a sales organization that's like, I didn't know that event was happening until my customer, sent me a link afterwards.
Right. So are you doing that? I mean, is that like email newsletters? I've seen a variety of different formats of like, the weekly marketing nugget, right? Or obviously there's probably like quarterly reviews and all hands and so on, but just what are some of the channels that you're delivering that message?
I believe that just like your external message, marketers need to be sick of it on purpose. Like you almost need to be overly overly redundant and just repeat yourself over and over and over and over. I think marketers tend to want the new shiny, and they'll change their message and then change it again and change it again. And I've been in that situation, and it's not as effective. And so just like your external marketing, your internal marketing can't rely on one channel, and you can't say it one time. You can't expect that everyone's going to consume this is what you're working
Right.
on if you just send an email. You got to send an email. You got to show them a calendar they can follow. You got to bring it up on their sales calls. You got to bring it up on your marketing summaries, your all hands, your sales enablements, and kind of exhaust it. Like this is coming up. This is coming up. Again, this is how you can use it. Let me make it easier for you. Let me dissect it. And this is the exact action that this group within the larger group should take right now, and try and simplify it as much as possible, but be repetitive.
Yeah, and I imagine that that's obviously more effective for them to receive the message, right? Just the repetition and the different channels. But I suspect it may also change how salespeople and the other parts of the organization view marketing, right? Because you always hear like sales are like, well, what's marketing doing for me, right? They're giving me all the, you know, the crappy leads, right? And so I suspect that may bring either more awareness, obviously, but more respect potentially for all the work that you guys are doing. Um, how do you see it kind of change the perception?
I think that's a great point. It could either do two things. It could be, and here's the glass full view, is it could say, "Wow, that's great. I didn't know marketing was doing all that stuff." The glass half full view, and maybe the more realistic one, if we're being objective, is why the hell are they doing that, right? And you're like, what are they doing that for? And it gives an opportunity to close the feedback loop, because now that they know this is happening, you can get together and say, we want you to do the A and you're over here doing B. Let's figure this out, meet together, because
Right.
maybe, it doesn't feel like we're together on this. And so it gives you an opportunity versus if you don't communicate it ahead of time, you're gonna be back and forth, and marketing's moved on to something else.
Right. And so you're really starting to speak to some of that marketing and sales alignment that we know is so critical as there's one growth goal, right? And it's upon the growth team to deliver, and obviously it's a team sport. So how do you work with sales leadership on some of those, whether it be messaging or what campaigns to run, so that you are kind of rowing in the same direction?
Well, it goes back to that first one, where if you got the CFOs, and ultimately you've got the sales incentives, their quotas, their bookings. You've got the right metrics there, so you know what they care about the most. You align with that, and you drive with them instead of your own KPIs. And I think where I've seen organizations really successful is where they've got one group number, and when sales celebrates, they celebrate with marketing. The less effective organizations is sales celebrates independent from marketing, or vice versa. Marketing's over here again celebrating, and then sales is like, we didn't win, we didn't hit that number, we didn't hit whatever our goal was trying. So why are you guys celebrating? It just creates more friction than necessary.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's hard. I mean, it's I think it's interesting. I mean, it's clear why marketing and sales are two different teams, right? But there's that handoff that is natural, for a reason. But it does come with a lot of um, extra effort to keep the teams aligned, to track things all the way through the funnel. Then you get to the attribution thing that we were talking about earlier. Like it's just really hard. So the more that you can kind of view it as a team sport, and celebrate together, or lose together, win together, it should take some of that friction out, hopefully, right, and just bring people together, um, and align on the goals. But I know it's hard because we go off and do our separate things, right?
Yeah, the clearest indicator to me of an organization where they're not integrated is the sales team is being asked to do marketing tasks and the marketing team is being asked to do sales tasks. If they were truly integrated, you wouldn't have the redundancy. And even technology is there's technology that's being built that's the sales team is kind of launching these campaigns, marketing's launching these maybe ABM one-to-one campaigns. And when I think about ABM, and you flip the funnel, start with the accounts in mind, that sounds a lot like sales to me, right? So the two together, if you integrated them and you had the funnels overlaid on top of each other, it just sales and marketing together.
Yeah, and I think ABM is a great example where that has to come. That I mean, it doesn't work without the teams working together, right? Because it takes execution on both sides. Um, no, that's really good. And I think one thing I've learned, just one of the pieces of feedback I got when I took the role here at Nine Lenses as CEO was, I have to bring my family along for the ride, right? Because we're working a lot. It's we have good days and bad days, right? Like in early stage software companies, it's easy to kind of ping pong around based on one customer or one great phone call or any number of things, and it's just easy just to kind of shut down and be like, okay, I want to close that for the day and go be with the family. But I also have to bring them along for the ride because they want to know, right? And they want to celebrate my success and understand if I'm having a bad day, why. And so that was the exact phrase that mentor mindset. You got to bring them along for the ride. So that's what made me think, you're doing it internally, but this was, kind of personally, as it's a lot of work to, kind of do this. So that was kind of a cool connection there. Well,
Yeah,
that's
and
fantastic,
maybe
Cody.
a better way to say it to your example there is in addition to bringing them along for the ride is you're celebrating the wins with them and not independent from them. And so you're because a lot of this work is work, like it's not easy. But if you
Yeah.
focus on the small incremental wins and the things that you're doing, like I mean, think about sales. Sales gets their wins and achievements in the form of a paycheck, and that tells them whether or not they're doing well. In marketing, that's not always the case. And so how do you celebrate jointly where the team is like, yeah, we're winning together? If you can celebrate those wins as a team with one goal in mind, you're going to have a lot of momentum, and you're going to have less misalignment.
Yeah, no, that's great. No, these are two great revenue rules. Clearly, you've done a lot in marketing. How did you get into marketing, Cody? How'd you find your way?
I was handed a laptop from my dad. He started a company, back in the 90s, and he would give me his old Microsoft Developer Suite enabled laptops, and I would just play around with Macromedia and Flash and C++
Uh-huh.
and all of that. So I wanted to be a programmer when I grew up. And then I went to college for advertising, started a little affiliate marketing business, and then was kind of hooked. It's this combination of art and science that it keeps me from getting bored because there's a lot of different aspects to it. There's the analytical side, but there's also the extreme creative side that I really enjoy, and it kind of
Yeah.
started there.
Wow. And so, where'd you land your first marketing job, and what was kind of the lessons learned?
I did I did an internship with Allstate, and they needed to get ranked up a little bit higher on the search engines, and
Hmm.
so they I told them some of the things that I did. I built a hockey equipment website. Hockey is one of the hobbies that I played growing up, and the equipment's fairly expensive. So I built a website, taught myself SEO, paid search, and got to number one out of 22 million sites for the keyword hockey equipment. Told them that story. They took a chance
Wow.
on me, worked, organic, paid search, social media with them. And yeah, I got some great experiences working with a great brand and some great agencies.
Wow. So that was as an intern?
As an intern, yeah, out of college, I actually went back two more times, did a contractor gig,
Okay.
and then yeah.
I would say that may be the coolest and most productive intern job I've heard of. My internship in college was nothing that exciting or
They
relevant, I should even say, to the business.
They really didn't treat it like an internship. You basically were like an employee of the company, which was fun. Like I wasn't getting coffees or anything like that. Like they were like, here's the business problem, step up and solve it.
Wow. Well, I mean, that kind of speaks to the entrepreneurial background, and you just kind of have to go and roll up your sleeves. What was the business your dad started?
He started a company called Integrated Performance Systems that was later acquired by Beeline, and it was one of the first human management capital performance companies. It was all around talent acquisition, e-learning, and so a lot of the stuff that I did there was they actually sat me in front of the team of developers, installed SQL, installed Microsoft Developer Suite, and then just said go. And I said, what do you mean go? The developer just said start. So I'm like, okay. And so I just asked them probably 1,000 questions, but was building some prototypes for the software and Flash applications, and I think back on it now, but it is a building blocks for all the websites that
Yeah.
I've created and
Yeah.
managed, and it gives me a good indication of how the databases work, like especially Salesforce and Pardot Marketo, like
Right.
how everything works together and it's the interconnectedness of it, which is where I have a lot of fun on the mop side. Like I've played with most marketing and sales tools out there.
Yeah, no, I think that's I had a similar experience where I was writing software. My first job was writing software. So I got to see commercial grade software, which like in college is not commercial grade. It's just like these little, things you're running on a computer lab computer. But that has carried forward as we're developing enterprise software. I still understand database design, and so like it just lets me understand and appreciate the technical layer that, obviously I can't go write software anymore, but it's a great foundation that you had, and just allows you to see technology beyond just the GUI, right? That is presented on screen. So that's especially with marketing, all those tools and technologies and data.
Yeah, and I mean the thing that's awesome about technology and programming, and I hope to get my girls into it as an early age, is that whole mentality of debugging. Like you've got to go and figure out the problem, and you got to also pay attention because all it takes is a semicolon or one character, and your entire compile is destroyed. And so you really got to you got to figure out where the problem is, and figure out how to go back systematically and where was the break. That has helped me a lot in connecting a lot of different technologies and processes, and in the funnel even. Where is the disconnect between we spent some money and the CFO has no idea why? Go debug it. Find the
Yeah,
break.
right. Yep. Look at the funnel. Well, no, this has been great. It's been awesome to hear your stories and your revenue rules. Those were two fantastic ones, two new ones that no one's touched on before. So thank you for that. Where can we find you online, Cody?
You can find me at LinkedIn, open networker. Love to just nerd out about this stuff and talk to people. Love marketing, really do. You can also find me at codyward.com if you want to check that out. But yeah, please reach out, and yeah, if you got a problem out there and I've got a story to share, we'll have some fun.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Cody. Thanks for coming on to the Revenue Hustle. Let's do it again soon.
Sounds great.
Thank you for tuning in to The Revenue Hustle. This episode has been brought to you by 9 Lenses. Close more deals with interactive assessments. Check them out at 9lenses.com. See you next time.